second, I'll do it. So we are going to record this and post it, and post any of the Q&A that's pertinent to, you know, global questions that anybody else, not global, but Minnesota questions that anyone else might have. So you can either ask your question in the chat, and Cheryl will be watching the chat, or at the end, when we open it up, you can unmute yourself. We want this to be conversational. We want you guys, even if a coach has an answer or can lend help to another coach, we're all about that as well. So, again, welcome tonight. Our call is going to focus on judging, because judging has changed the last 2 years, and I know a lot of people didn't participate last year. So I'm gonna start here with our judging structure. I'm going to go into core values in just a second, but just as a note, especially anyone who did not do the program last year, there is no longer a separate core values session, you know, where the kids went in and they did a little activity, and it was a separate core values judging session. First actually got rid of that session last year. So, and I will explain later how core values is evaluated. But it is evaluated in every judging session and at the robot table. It is completely integrated into all the rubrics, as well as it has its own rubric. Clearly, first is putting a lot of emphasis on core values, just so you guys know. So what we're going to do in Minnesota this year, if you go out to First and you look at their stuff, they are pushing a 30-minute judging session. What we're going to do here in Minnesota, we're going to just tweak that a little bit, and we are going to have 2 15-minute sessions. So it's still 30 minutes, but we're going to have a judging session for project and for 15 minutes, and a judging session for robot design and programming for 15 minutes. And I'll go into those in detail, but each session will begin with a 5-minute presentation. The presentation for your robot design and programming session is optional, but I'll talk about that when we get there. But it'll be 5 minutes of presentation, and then 10 minutes or however much time is left of Q&A to follow with the judges, which is very similar to what we've done in the past. And anybody who is a coach in the olden days, back when I had a team, the really olden days, this is actually, it's the same format as it was then, just the 2 judging sessions. So, all right, I'm going to start with core values. So this is the new, so all the rubrics were revamped last year, and completely and totally revamped, like not even close to what they used to look like. So this is the new core values rubric. And actually, if you look at it, so I pulled the rubric apart so that I could blow it up on this format. So if you look on the right of the rubric part, where it says discovery, innovation, impact, inclusion, and teamwork going down, those are actually the 6 core values. So if you look at those, every time you go into judging, if you're looking at those, you know, the first one, discovery, team explored new ideas. So you can talk about that in project. You can talk about that when you're talking about your robot and your programming. The same with an innovation. You used creativity to solve a problem, right? You can talk about all those things. Even impact, team applied what they learned to improve their world. That's probably a pretty easy thing to talk about in project. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult to talk about in robot design and programming, but have the team think about how it improved. It could be their world themselves. It could be they mentored a team, all these things. So as you're looking at this rubric, just sort of kind of march down and make sure your team is talking about these and talking about these 6 points. So in Minnesota, you will have a core values judge in with your project judge and a core values judge in with your robot design and programming judge. And they will be observing in that session. If you get your rubrics back and a box isn't marked, it's just that the judge did not actually observe that in the session. And we're going to talk to our judges about that. We don't want the judge to give just a random ranking if they didn't see something or or weren't able to ask a question. And we're thinking this might happen more in like the robot design and programming session. If they didn't observe something, then they're just not going to score it. And it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just so you know, it just wasn't observed. So don't freak out about that if there's no box checked there. All right. So on to the project. So we've had some questions about the project. And so I wanted to start with, so this is from page 7 in the engineering notebook. And I just want to point out the challenge. I put these little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s on here to show you how they correlate with the rubric that's going to be on the next slide. But where it says number 1, identify a specific problem related to making the transportation journey of products better. That's your question. Someone from another region pointed out that they thought it was kind of funny that the word cargo is nowhere in the actual question, even though it's called Cargo Connect. But it's so transportation journey of a product. So another question we've got, what is a product? What constitutes a product? And we've kind of gone round and round on this because the question is, could it be the transportation journey of people? And while I don't think there's been an actual official ruling from FIRST, but the definition, I looked it up, definition of a product is an article or substance that is manufactured or refined for sale, a thing that is produced by labor. So I don't think that we're not selling humans, right? So I guess I would not think that it's a human. I mean, I don't think that is the intent. And I think that if enough people asked FIRST, they would probably put an update on that, but that was the conversations that we had. So for number 1, you are defining and coming up with your problem. You're picking a problem. Say you want to figure out how to get widgets from, point A to point B. So then in number 2, you're going to do your research, and what judges are looking for, they're going to be really looking for not that you went to 700 different, Google sites and went to Wikipedia and went, to all these places. I think they're going to be looking at the quality of your research, looking for a better level of like reflection and what are they discovering. So we went to these 3 Google sites, and that spurred this conversation and this question. Oh, and it sent us off in this direction. And then we researched that. And then it's just that quality. Did your research cause you to discover things that maybe you never thought about? Did it spark new questions? Did it send you, kind of off on different directions, make you realize, maybe it made you realize, wow, we're not talking to the right expert. We need to talk to this expert because we thought we wanted to go in this direction and now we're going in this other direction. And then the next part on the rubric, and what I might do is flip, is going to be I'll go here quick. So see, you identify, see where number 1 is. This is the actual rubric. You identify your problem, then you design a solution. So now you're creating number 3, you're creating your solution. So if we go back to number 3, I'm sorry, number 2, you were researching. Number 3, you're designing and creating your new piece of technology. And it's going to correlate right back to the rubric. Number 4, you're sharing. And number 5 is your actual presentation. So if you flip here, so you go to 3, and if you just march down this rubric, it says right next to create, team developed an original idea or built on to an existing idea with adding in a prototype or a model or a drawing to represent their solution. So don't get caught up in the whole sentence, take it a little bit at a time. So you're going to develop original idea. or, fix an existing solution or, but the prototype, model, and drawing, don't think that you have to make some big elaborate whatever. It can be a drawing. I think it is meant to make it easier for the judge to understand what the kids are talking about. You want to iterate your idea, and then your communication part is your presentation. It also could be going back to your, maybe your expert or whatever. And I think the thing to keep in mind here with both of your judging sessions. So as a coach, you're with your kids every week, you're doing your thing, you know what those kids know. Those kids think they know what they know. But then they get in front of judging, they get in front of a panel of judges and their mind sort of wanders, they get nervous, they forget stuff. Have them practice. I mean, I think practicing your presentation for this, as well as your robot design, as well as doing, throw out some questions to them, throw them some hard questions, like questions they don't know the answer to, and see if they can navigate or just be prepared for a question they don't know an answer to, just because probably they're going to get a question they don't know the answer to. How are they going to deal with that? How are they going to maybe say, well, I'm not sure about that. However, we did research this, which is similar to that, maybe, and blah, 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 blah. So I would just check out these rubrics. They are on our website. In First Lego League, there's a tab called 2021 Cargo Connect. All the rubrics are in there. You march down the rubrics and you say, okay, we need to do these 5 things. And then try to move from left to right. How deep are you going to go in your knowledge of all these things? A big thing for both of these rubrics is iterations. They want you to try something and keep trying, maybe try, fail, try, that kind of a thing, build upon your idea. Another thing in both this rubric and the robot design rubric is including everyone. So how did every team member participate and add to, what it is that you're presenting. And this judging session for innovation project will, like I said, be 15 minutes total. You get a 5-minute presentation, and there will be a core values judge in there that will also ask core values type questions, perhaps associated with the project, perhaps not, but they will be talking about asking some of those basic core value questions. All right. So then for robot design, so this is page 8.
Vicki, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Absolutely. You want me to go back?
I have a question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
It cracks me up. Transportation of eye drops from a bottle into the eye. I was thinking, no, but kids often surprise me.
Oh.
Okay,
instead of going like this is what she means, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, okay, let's go back and read that question. Identify a specific problem related to making the transportation journey of products better. All right, is that a use of a product, or you think that's a... So this is Shelley, of course. Shelley's doing this to me right now. Okay, so I don't know. What do you think, Jeannie? I think you almost... I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one.
Shelley, I think my thought is, can the kids get across to the judges that they have identified a specific problem, making the transportation journey of the products better? So I think you're actually talking about the implementation of the product instead of transportation, but she's been questioning this for weeks. I'm going to hold on that, Shelley. I actually may suggest you send that directly to First, but knowing your kids and team, I could see them convincing the judges. But
And
Chris Simonson is saying, look up the definition of transportation.
Right.
And that's probably a good idea.
And I would also say that think about how they would explain that to a judge, because a judge is going to have that same question. Is that really what, are you answering the question? And if, so I will say this. Okay. Oh, just a second. I just want to finish this thought. Don't make it hard for the judges. I guess that's my best suggestion. So who had their hand up, Cheryl?
Jenna has her hand up.
Is she still there? Jenna?
Yep.
I am.
There you are.
You're just saving me from typing it out loud.
Okay.
I guess my question to your team would be, so if they're making a new way of implementing it, would it need a new way of transporting it? I'm a wheelchair user, so I'm thinking if you're trying to make it more accessible of implementing it, and then therefore, because it's a liquid and maybe the implementation has some kind of accommodation, that maybe it couldn't be transported the same way that it currently is. So how could you improve the transportation of your new identified product? Just an idea.
Well, that's another way. That is also another way to look at it. I guess, again, I would go back to try to not make the judges think that hard. Not that our judges aren't smart. I just don't want them to doubt if the kids can explain it in a way that, yep, we are talking about a transportation journey of a product. And I know that the easy way to think about it is, how do you transport, for instance, eye drops from wherever they're made to, let's say, Minnesota, right? As opposed to the actual drop going into the eye. Because the drop going into the eye, I think, just opens up way more questions than it does the actual product going from point A to point B. Because if you look over on the left, sorry, I had to do that with my hand. It says right here, to transport it, after the end of the first paragraph says transport products from place to place. Now I realize this isn't actually part of the question, but I think if you go with the spirit of which, we know that this question is being asked, I think, Shelley, if your kids really want to do that, I would actually email, what is it, FLL Challenge, Jeannie at First Inspires? Oh, Jeannie's going to look it up. She'll put it in the chat. I would actually email them, because that one I'm really not very sure on. But very creative. Get an A for creativity. All right, so I am going to jump over to the robot design, and in Minnesota, it's robot design and programming. This is the next page in the engineering notebook. So this is page 8, and it says, and robot game. So I don't like necessarily that they put these two things together. Just want to make clear that robot performance is measured by the referees, at the table, 3, 2, 1, Lego, all that in 2.5 minutes. The performance of the robot and how well the robot actually works is not measured by the judges. So our robot design and programming judges actually are looking at your design and your iteration of your design and the journey that your robot has gone through. So if you look at this, and that's why I skipped. So I have one. This is also something I tried to correlate with the rubric on the next page. In marching down your rubric, this part where it says the compete in robot game matches is not actually on the rubric, but it is clearly part of your robot design. So number one, they have build your mission models. So just my note for that is, make sure you're building your mission models correctly. If your kids have built them, make sure they all work correctly. And if you question that they're working correctly and you can't decide if they're working correctly, email Jeannie or I, and we can try to work through that with you and tell you how the model is supposed to work. But really in this number one, as it correlates back to the rubric, is identifying your mission strategy. So part of what the judges are going to talk to you about is your strategy. Why are you doing the missions you're doing in the order that you're doing them? And it's perfectly okay for the kids to say, we're a rookie team. We wanted to do all the stuff close to home, close to launch. And that's a great strategy. And that's okay. And then the next part of the rubric, I'll show it really quick. So that was identify. Your next part of the rubric is your design and your create, which first is sort of put in this second bullet point. And again, talk about your iterations in this, even though iteration is the next thing. We all know that the robot you guys start with right now is not the robot you're bringing to an event. Even if you're coming to the Egan event, this isn't the same robot that you're going to bring to the event. It's going to have changes. Okay. And then as you're iterating and as you're testing, talk about, or look at, remember your failures, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Have the kids say, yep, we tried this and we tried this and we decided A, B, and C. Have them either keep a notebook or something so they can remember what kind of testing, I guess the word methods they were using. Are they, did they decide that having a mission work, 60% of the time that was good for them and then they moved on? Or did they just do it 30% of the time? Or are they, or did they have to get it way up to 100% of the time before they would move on to the next, to the next mission? Are they using landmarks? Judges love when teams use landmarks, and the wall is a landmark. What else, what are they using out there? Are they using a line? Are they using a color to find their way? These are all things that you want to talk about when in your judging. And a new thing this year, well, maybe it was last year. In this book, they are encouraging teams to prepare a short presentation. So here, number 5, they say, prepare a short explanation that explains your process, and what the team used to create their robot and their programs and how they work. And so if you look, and that's why we're giving teams that 5 minutes. If you don't have a presentation, that's okay. But the judges are going to say, would you like the 5 minutes for a presentation? And they will give you that 5 minutes. So, and here's where these numbers loop back to those bullet points. And I'd like to keep in mind for anyone who took a couple of years off and now they're back, we no longer have a game table in this session, so you won't be demonstrating your robot. You do want to bring your robot so you can, say, here's my robot, here's all my attachments and that stuff. Same thing with your programs. You're going to want to bring your laptop or bring a printout of your programs or some way to show the judges your programs. We are also not going to, in the past, we've broken the kids out and, done programming over here. We're not going to do that anymore. It's going to be just a big, long conversation that's going to encompass design and programming. And again, process. It's about the process. It's about their iterations. It's about how did the programmers talk to the builders? Even if those roles switched, when you were building something and someone was programming something, how did they talk to each other? How did they make sure that the programmer wasn't going on and then all of a sudden the builders put new wheels on it? And I know that's happened to any experienced coach. And then the programmers go, oh, now I have to start over. So how did they navigate that? And again, there's a line in here, and I forget where it is, about including all the team members. Even if not all the team members built the robot, or not all the team members programmed. Do they at least understand programming? Do they understand basic building, principles? Did you talk about that as a team? So that is something that you should definitely make sure that those kids are talking about. And again, even this judging session, I think this judging session, a lot of times teams they don't practice it. They just go in and we're like, we're going to talk about our robot. But you should practice this. You should have the kids go in and give their presentation, or pretend like you're a judge and say, all right, I'm going to go down this rubric and try to see if I can get these answers out of my team. And what's interesting, if you do it, you know how much stuff they already know. And so you know how you can continue to ask questions until, you get that deeper answer that you're looking for, to get them, maybe from beginning to developing, or developing to accomplished even. And have the kids practice that part, practice that part. Are there any questions about this part, Jeannie?
No, but I think what I would add to what you just said is, I've coached a lot of teams. I've seen my kids in judging. Sometimes you kind of almost have to knock the judges over the head with what you're trying to get across, especially if your kids are wanting to be that accomplished and exceeds column. It may be worth saying it more than once. It may be worth having it on a trifold board, so they can kind of refer to that board. My kids love that. It was their cheat sheet. And if they wanted the judges to know something, they would march down this rubric and say, our clear mission strategy was da, da, da. So really kind of putting it out there. It is stressful to be a judge, and you don't hear everything, to be quite honest. So practice, like Vicki said, getting the kids to give a succinct and clear, and maybe sometimes repetitive answer.
That's great advice. Jeannie was a judge. I was always a referee. So, I know how to cheer the kids on. Jeannie knows what judges are looking for. But yeah, and that's true. Hitting them over the head a little bit of just repetitiveness for both this judging and the project judging. All right. So I know this isn't part of judging, but there were robot game updates this week, September 30th. That was still this week. These are new. These are the newest updates since I believe the game was released. So I'll start at the bottom with update 8. So the food package, which is the thing that comes off the helicopter, they're just reiterating that the kids can't reach over and grab that food package, because the one that is over by their base actually is hanging over their, not base. What is that? Home. Sorry. Old verbiage. It's kind of hanging there. The cargo plane clarification. So the cargo plane that's in the corner, sort of by the base, it has a piece of cargo in it, and it kind of opens like this. And there are some cargo planes that the mouth is just opens slowly. And so the update is, if your cargo plane door is experiencing fatigue, mission points due to the model malfunction are going to be benefit of the doubt. But just know that if you're coming to an in-person event, all of our cargo planes, that mouth is still staying closed, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure that mission model is working properly. So if yours is opening and you're going over there and you're pushing down on that lever or some whatever, just realize that it's going to be higher. If yours is lower, ours is going to be up all the way. So just know that. And then update 10, also back to mission 8 for that airdrop. If you are the only team, and if there's no team across the table from you, they're going to allow those teams to begin with the food package completely at home, as if the other team dropped it. And then if you drop your food package on the far end, then you will get the 20 points for having released it and the 10 points for both teams having released it from their food packages from the helicopters. So just wanted to throw that out. Do you have anything to say about those? You were going to talk about the jig, Jeannie?
Okay, so this has not been officially, let me just quick do this. Turn my camera back on so you can see me. So I sent a post to First asking about jigs. Jigs are not mentioned anywhere. They were kind of mentioned as an afterthought last year. What they said is jigs are allowed. So we want our Minnesota coaches to know that. And they can reach into the west and or south wall as they meet the conditions of R14 launching. So you could have a jig that is in the launch area and it extends back to that west wall, you know, might give those kids a flat surface to launch out of that west side. As long as they aren't holding that jig in place when it goes, and as long as that jig doesn't travel with them, it can extend from the west wall into the launch area. Now you have to keep in mind, in order to get the points for fitting into this inspection area, that jig has to somehow fit in that small inspection area. They may be able to break it apart and then put it back together. If you have questions about the jig, feel free to let me know. It cannot extend out of the launch area, so it can't go out on the field, but it can extend from the launch area through home to that west wall. Yes, they can remove the jig before they launch if they wanted to. All right, so. And then Chris has a question. In the solo team situation, can your team then deliver to the Cargo Connect circle? Yeah, that's kind of a weird one where in a remote situation where they don't have a team against them, that package is essentially in their area. So yeah, they could take it and deliver it out to the Cargo Connect circle. So it's kind of a weird rule, but they're mainly just, I think, not wanting that thing to drop off the end of your table and get lost.
Well, and I guess if they're not addressing it, if you are in a remote event, and you start with the package.
You guys are muted.
Sorry. Sorry about that. So I guess one thing that I would like to clarify with First is at a remote event, if you start with the package in home, then it's not hanging off your helicopter. So I guess that'll be something where if the team goes out and actuates the thing that releases, because they only have one package, right? So we'll have to figure out how to deal with that for our remote events. So if they go out and actuate that little lever that releases the package, I guess we will decide.
No, update 10 addresses that. It says, if at any point during the match your robot interacts with the airdrop model, you will get the points for releasing the food package.
Yeah. So, all right. So I told you it was only 9 slides. So I'm going to take the PowerPoint off of here and we can address other questions about judging, or if you have robot game questions, we are here.
All right, so I will address one. Clara says, I thought they had to deliver their innovation project piece to the Cargo Connect circle. That is one mission, is to deliver the cargo, your innovation project model. There's also delivering containers to that circle. So they may want to deliver multiple things at once or take multiple trips to the Cargo Connect circle. Or that's what part of the fun of the game is figuring out, oh, how can we make one trip and get multiple points?
Actually, Jeannie, should we go to the questions that people have submitted?
Yep. So these are a couple of questions that were submitted to us earlier. And Vicki addressed this one. Sounds like robot design and programming is a little different without the programming break. Should the team prepare to do a 5-minute presentation? Yes. So they don't have to do that 5-minute presentation. We just found that if the kids come in ready to to share what they've learned, their progress, and again, marching down those rubrics. And then the judges will have that about 10 minutes after. They will not be interrupted during that 5-minute presentation. If they don't have one, then the judges will start just talking to the team. That's in robot design. And then she also wanted to know if we will know if it is project or robot judging. Yes, your schedule will be very clear if you're going into project judging or if you're going into robot design. And you may actually, your first thing may be inspection on your practice round. So the schedules will go out generally about 2.5 weeks before the tournament.
And just to be clear about that.
I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I was muted again. And just to be clear about that, when I say they're 2 different sessions, they're not going to be back to back. So you'll have a judging session just like you did before that says, you know, project, and then you might do your robot thing, and then later you might do your robot design. So they're not, it's not going to be 30, it's not going to be 2 15-minute sessions back to back.
Unless you're in a remote event.
Unless you're in a remote event.
And I don't know who on here is in the remote event. So no core value activity in the judging room. That was another question. Someone says, what's the most efficient, quickest way to ensure my students know how to code our robot without my constant direction, since I am still learning how to code? I guess my tip on this, and we have some very seasoned coaches on here that can maybe chime in. My tip is to have the kids program on paper first. Write out what they want to happen, what they want the robot to do, where they want the robot to go. Write that on paper. So they're not sitting at the computer wanting to program. And then they've thought it out. How far do they want it to drive? How fast do they want it to drive? And by doing that, that's going to help them a long way in knowing how to code. Because you don't have to be able to plug it necessarily into the programming software, but knowing those step by step is, to me, the biggest step in learning to code. Any experienced judges want to jump in on that?
And you know what, if they put it on paper, put that in their little notebook and show the programming judges, this was our technique. I think, Jeannie, you were a programming judge. Did you like seeing that?
Absolutely. Plus, that can also show the progress of what the kids have done, what they have learned. It's a great way to show the progress.
Hey, Jeannie, do you know if anyone has, or are those programming blocks available to be printed anywhere so the kids could, kind of put them together with a plan in that way? Or is that something or does anyone know that you can get them printed? I guess I haven't thought of that before.
Yeah, I know you can print, if once the kids have written their programs, but can you print the actual blocks to kind of have a visual for the kids?
Right, yeah.
That is a very good question, John. You're going to make me earn my pay tonight.
I think, John, that's your way to make some money, right?
Yeah, there you go. Pinterest.
Develop little cards.
Yeah, I was thinking screenshotting. That's what Jenna just said.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Screenshot them and then cut them out. There might be another
Yeah,
way too.
you guys are so smart.
It's a good idea.
All right. Let me see. So Katie asked, last year seemed like robot design judges were expecting the kids to, yes, I don't think we declared it last year that the kids were going to have the opportunity to do a presentation, but we're really encouraging teams to do that. I think it's a better experience for the kids to say, hey, this is what we did. Boom, boom, boom. This is what we learned. This is where we started. This is where we got, and spending that 5 minutes.
Hold on, Jeannie. We have a question in the chat that is around coding.
Okay.
Is there documentation for code blocks that explain what all the configurations of the blocks actually do? Most are self-explanatory, but is there some way, but there are some I wondered about and what they're used for.
Yep, and it depends on what software you are using. In EV3 classrooms, Riley is sending me a message under settings, help. There's explanations. So Riley just put that in there, but it is not extensive. It's not a great one. It's not as good as EV3 lab, the good old EV3G. If you're using the Spike Prime, there's a help feature there. And I think that one is a little more developed than the EV3 classroom. That tells you what those blocks are doing.
Are the tutorials one way to walk through those?
Oh, Cheryl, you set me up. You guys know I love tutorials. There are great tutorials in EV3 lessons. I'm not EV3 lessons, EV3 classroom. And there are good tutorials in the Spike Prime. They're both under units, and go in there and do those basic ones. I love that. When my kids would ask me a question I didn't know, I'd say, well, let's go figure it out together and go in those units. Or if I didn't have time, I'd say, you go figure it out and come back and teach the group. So those they're tutorials. They're actually called units in both the Spike Prime and the EV3 classroom.
So Anne asked where the tutorials are for Spike Prime. So they're in
so
something.
If you go to home and then it appears, there's 2 boxes, I believe, in Spike Prime. One says units and one says build, I think. But it's right there and it says units.
Also really quick, Jenna put a good idea. I believe this was John's question about icons. You could put the icons in a Google slide deck, and the kids can quote unquote program from home without needing to have Mindstorms or other software loaded. Super doable if your kids have Google Workspaces through school. Chris Simonson is reminding everyone, she uses EV3 lessons or Prime lessons, and they have slideshows there. Riley put in the chat the link to the EV3, the Scratch docs. And those are the tutorials. And Chris did say for Spike Prime lessons, download the unit titled Competition Ready. All right. That's awesome, guys. Do we have any more questions, Jeannie?
Yep, our team was given one workbook. Does this workbook need to be filled in for the competition? Each team member has their own blank notebook that is used weekly. Is that sufficient? Basically, that is do what works best for your team. First did provide engineering notebooks. They provide, I believe, 2 for a team, and there is an interactive one that is available through your dashboard. And the kids can use that. They don't have to use that. The judges are not going to ask for it. It is not an assignment. It's a great way to kind of step through the process and document some of the things that they're doing. You're not going to hand that to the judges. You're not going to hand the judges anything, really. And if you are, it's nothing that's going to be left with the judges. The judges, when your team walks out the door, they're not going to have time to go through extra documents that you hand them. But that is mainly kind of a way. It has some good triggers, some good prep work. And I would encourage using it. But if your kids have a notebook and that's how they're documenting their journey, that's great. Again, it's the judging, as Vicki said, it's all about the process. How did we get from here to here? And keeping that notebook helps the kids remember that they didn't start with this robot. I loved being a judge and say, is this the robot you started with? They'll say, yes. And you know that it's no, they didn't start there, but they kind of forget the process that the robot took along the way, or their project took along the way, or even their core values took along the way. Boy, if you can show them how they learned and improved their core values, that's pretty amazing, because we know those are tough ones.
And one thing I wanted to remind people about judging is it's the conversation that happens that day, the team and the judges. So like we said before, I mean, okay, remember that judging is subjective. But it's also, you're going to sit there and I did this as a coach. Jeannie did this as a coach. You're sitting and judging. The judge asks a question. You talked about this with your team, and they go, they don't know. And you're back there and you're pulling your hair out and you just trying to use your ESP to give them the answer because they know the answer, which is why you need to practice. And so just remember that they're getting evaluated on what they share with the judges, not necessarily even what they did. It's what they shared, what they did. So just be sure that those kids are really sharing everything they want the judges to know.
And then we have one last question that was sent in before: where to download the shared mission code? I can't seem to find it anywhere. I think in the Spike Prime that has actually been finally updated, that the shared code is in there. If you cannot find it, and I don't think EV3 Classroom has been updated yet. The last time I looked, which was last week, it still had last year's mission. On our website, under, yeah, if you want to share your screen. It's under the tools, the Cargo Connect season. So she's going to go to FLL. Yep, you're muted.
All right, so right here, I clicked Cargo Connect. Okay, I don't actually know where it is. I would go here. So we have our challenge overview. This is where our game updates are. Oh, and here's the code right here.
So when you click on that, it downloads immediately to your computer. So if you are on a school computer, it might not like that. If you can't download directly like that, send me an email, jeannie@hightechkids.org, and I can send you that code. They do not have code for the old EV3G lab, the one that is the one that goes across this way. They do not have it. Something to keep in mind with that, the guided lessons and guided code, it is not documented, which is kind of a drag for a new team. So it may be worth taking the team through the steps of, let's diagnose what each step of this is doing. It is kind of built for that basic Spike Prime robot, that real tiny one. So if you put on bigger wheels or make it a much bigger robot, that code might not work. And I have found that the EV3 Classroom code, even though I have that basic educator model built, works about 6 out of 10 times. So that program is a little bit fussy. So don't think it's just going to work. It's a great code to look at. I wish it were documented. It's a little pet peeve of, from a programming judge, but it's a decent place to start.
Okay.
And then Riley mentions it's under the first site under guided mission.
Okay.
But again, we've got it right there on our website, so you can not have to go out to the big first site.
And if you were curious, this is where our rubrics are. And down in here, or wait, where was that going to be? Right here is where we are going to put our Minnesota robot performance score sheet, the actual app that our referees are going to be using. So we talked about that at training. I just wanted to point out where that kind of stuff was.
And we will actually be referencing that when we do the game, the coach call focused on the game, which is our next one.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. Is there a time limit to load the blue cargo container in the robot game? No, 2.5 minutes. So if they can get it in the first second, they have 2 minutes and 29 seconds to fill it up. And that's the kids are filling that up. The team, they can manipulate it when it's in home, not when it's out on the field, but when it's in home. The robot does not have to. I'd like to see it.
Yeah. All right. Are there any more questions out there for anyone? Oh, do the judges check the platooning trucks to make sure they are latched?
The referees will kind of pull back on them. Your robot does not have to pull back and prove that it is latched, but the referees, that will be something they do as they're marching through at the end of the match. They'll kind of grab that platooning truck and say, are these latched? And then that's how they will determine it.
And you
Same
can tell,
with the train.
and you can tell by that little, what is it called? The little
Latch.
The little latch hooky thing.
All right. Any other questions?
I just can't believe we explained it that well.
If you come up with additional questions, feel free to email us. I'm going to throw my email in here one more time. So it's just Jeannie at High Tech Kids. Okay, so send me emails with questions. If I can't figure them out, I will encourage you to go to first. But generally, we can answer the questions that how we are doing it here in Minnesota. And there are no dumb questions because those are some of the best ones. Is the ones you go, huh?
And if,
Make us go, huh?
yeah. And if there's anyone who is not yet registered for an event, registration is still open. So please go ahead and register. Or if you know of another team that's not quite registered yet, and they may not be registered with First yet. And if you have a team, say your school is adding a team and you want to register an event before you have a PO that's going slow through First, just give me an email, give me a call or an email, and we can work that out. So we just want to make sure that every team registered in Minnesota has a chance to play if they want to play. All right. Well, if y'all don't have any more questions, we are happy to end 10 minutes early unless someone has another question. No.
All right. And we're kind of you guys are welcome.
Yeah.
Vicki and I'll stick around a few minutes, but it's any last ones.
Yeah. So thank everybody.
Right.
Thank you guys
You're
for
welcome.
giving us your time tonight.
Have a good night.
Don't forget about the next call.
Cheryl says thanks for coaching.
Thanks for coaching. All right. Oh, when is the next call, Jeannie? It is. Can you look behind you on that? Jeannie, someone said, when is the next call? Do you have it? Can you see it?
Looking.
October 18th.
October 18th.
I was going to put my email and say, don't ask me Lego questions because I don't know the answer. Then I thought that doesn't sound very helpful. And I thought, well, you can send me money though, if you want to. Sir, come talk to me.
That's funny. All right.
You can probably stop recording.
Yeah, let's see. I forgot what the record button is. Oh, there it is.